welcome to another episode of the Indie Author Mindset podcast with me, Adam Croft. It's a guest interview special today. You can probably see him over there, sitting next to me, even though he's at home. We'll be speaking to David Mark. First of all, though, a little message to get out of the way. This podcast is gratefully sponsored by Ingram Spark, the award-winning indie publishing platform that offers authors like you a way to get your paperbacks and hardbacks into over 40,000 bookstores and libraries worldwide. Let Ingram Spark take care of the details so that you can focus on what you do best, which is, of course, writing. Get started today at ingramspark.com. Now, on to our guest, who's been sitting waiting very patiently, listening to me lick some corporate backside. It's Mr. David Mark. Hello, David.
How are you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, I hope you are too. You've made your name as a traditionally published author. You were one of the Richard and Judy Book Club picks in 2012 for Dark Winter, the first Hector McAvoy book, or Hector McAvoy book, I think is how he's meant to pronounce it.
Pronounce it how you like, as long as you buy it. I know it's really good.
Yes, good. I have bought it. I've dropped it in the bath twice as well, as I've told you before. And
yeah.
very much
I'm going to put an embargo on. No more reading naked. That's it. It's spoiled my vision of my reader.
I was fully clothed in the bath, of course.
Of course, that's it. You're an Englishman.
But your books have been optioned for TV. Another book of yours, Zealot's Bones, was a Sunday Times Book of the Year in 2016. You've had books adapted for stage, which was sold out immediately. You had great success as a traditionally published author, but things recently changed for you, which is, without getting too far ahead of ourselves in the story, you're here on the Indie Author Mindset podcast. So
indeed,
perhaps there's a bit of a spoiler there, but talk us through what came next.
Well, essentially, my career seemed to be a series of ups. It started well. Dark Winter was a huge hit here and in lots of territories, translated into loads of languages. And I think publishers, and certainly I, thought that as a result of one book selling, nigh on, hundreds of thousands of copies, that everybody who bought that would therefore buy the next one and the next one and the next one, and they wouldn't have to do quite so much work in making sure people were aware of it. And that wasn't the case. But each consecutive book was very well received. One a year. Diehard fans and okay numbers, not brilliant, but okay numbers. But they didn't lose faith in me. That was very much the case. And I was headhunted by a larger publisher about halfway through the series. They offered me lots of money, which is very much the way to my heart. They seemed to understand what I was trying to do. And the books came out with them, did okay, didn't do brilliantly, but as far as I was concerned, I was still sold on the pitch. I've still got the glossy brochure in which they talked about how they wanted me to be a career author, and ups and downs and be the new X, Y, and Z. And then after what was, I think, was the 8th book in the series, I sent the pitch for books 9 and 10, and they said, well, we think maybe it's time to try something new, so go away and write something new. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started writing a supernatural thriller set in the Lake District, which they'd liked the sound of. My agent sent it to them, and they were like, well, we like it, but it's not quite police procedural enough. I was like, oh, well, I've been writing police procedurals for the past 8 years, but all right, I'll do that. And with that rather pitiful little Scotty dog jumping up for a treat approach that traditional authors tend to have, of please love me, I did everything they asked and more, and then they didn't want it. And I was like, oh, well, do you want another McAvoy book then? No. I was like, oh, so I haven't got a contract then? No. I'm like, oh.
And then it kind of started to sink in, I guess, that
Yeah, I thought this was part of a process.
mm,
I didn't realize it was just a subtle way of getting me to go away and get the message.
hmm,
Because as far as I was concerned, if you write a book and everybody likes it, you've done your bit. If you write a book and nobody knows about it, then whose fault is that? You
yeah,
know, you should be dropping them, not them dropping you.
mm,
But
mm.
you either get bitter, that was tempting, but I'm not an alcoholic anymore, so I don't get as bitter as I used to. Or you think I'll show you, and hence indie author mindset. I'm trying to show them. I don't know if they care, but I'm damn well going to show them.
Well, this is
So,
it. From knowing you a bit, I know you're tenacious, you're determined. You're a smart guy, and I don't think there's ever any doubt that you would, pick yourself up and either try again or try something new. And you have come over to the dark side. You're now
yeah.
publishing independently. I think is it 2 books you've got out independently at the moment, or is it just the one? I can't remember.
It's 3 now.
Oh, is it 3 now? Is it right? Gotcha.
Yeah, but well, bizarrely, I did two thrillers. The one that I wrote for my publisher that they didn't want, I finished, and it actually turned into one of the best things I've ever written. And we pitched it around a lot of other publishers, who all agreed it was. It sounds, as an Englishman, it's hard to say anything that sounds as though you're picking yourself up. But
Yeah.
everybody agreed it was terrific. But my sales track record was what put off the accountants. Which makes you feel as though it's essentially a club of publishers, and if your name is mud at one place, it's mud across the board. So I just thought, you know what? All that matters to me is getting some independent responses to this from readers, actual readers, not anybody with any skin in the game, just somebody who wants to buy a book and read it.
Yeah.
And thankfully, people are responding to it, and it got to number 3, I think it was, in one of the in one of the charts on Amazon within the first week, which is beyond my wildest dreams. So I immediately polished a couple of other books that I'd thought were perhaps a little bit weren't going to get the sort of traction that they would from a traditional publisher. Made them the best I could make them, and they're out there as well, including a prequel to Dark Winter, which if I'd pitched around 8 or 9 years ago, I'd have had a lot of interest. But publishers have short memories, and some readers do too, I suppose. But yeah, so they're all out there, and
Good.
it's a bizarre feeling. It
Yeah,
really is.
how are you finding that process? Obviously, it's quite different to be, to go from being the kind of the golden boy of some of the biggest publishers, and I guess kind of walking into the building and being applauded as you do so, to being not kind of left on your own almost, I guess. I mean, it's got fans and readers, and I guess you're probably finding out now that the indie author community as well is hugely supportive, and it's kind of like having that clout of a publisher behind you anyway. You've got the experts and the people who've been there, happy to help, and who won't drop you in it either when the mood takes them.
Yeah, well, without doubt. I mean, I'm every bit as excited about if I get an email from a reader, or even just a tweet. It's as exciting to me now as it was when I used to open the Telegraph and see a review.
Yeah.
Because it's something that was birthed in your head or in your soul or wherever it is that stories come from, and it's out there being enjoyed. I mean, it's like it's a dirty word to say that books are a form of entertainment, but they are. It can be incredibly. It can be life affirming, life changing to read a book, but you're still seeking entertainment. And when I know that something that I've done all by myself has entertained somebody, or has made them think, or has just made them stop watching crap telly. If somebody's just sat and thought, what, I'm going to finish this book, I'm loving it. Yeah. That's the best feeling imaginable. Yeah. And the fact that you've got to go and beg in London for people to represent that passion, rather than being allowed to actually say it yourself, has always struck me as somewhat bizarre.
Well, I think the best crime fiction does have a definite social commentary and does change your way of thinking about things. And if I can fangirl for a little bit, your books definitely do that, and that's why I love them. But I think
you've got beautiful eyes, Adam. You've got beautiful eyes.
thank you, and beautiful hair as well. We've got a definite look
I
going on,
like
haven't
it.
we?
Yeah. Yeah, if we get Mike Craven to join us, we could we could suddenly look like three breasts in a bra, couldn't we?
That's it. Yeah. One of us with the hands over our eyes, one with the hands over the ears.
Yeah, there's a lot of thought going to go into this for the rest of the afternoon.
But I guess, like you say, you're kind of pouring your heart and soul into these stories, hoping to change people. And something we've talked about between us in the past as well is this kind of creative curse. And I mean, I don't know how much the issue with the publishers and the change of direction affected things, but you've been quite open in the past about your kind of mental health struggles as well, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, I think the two things tend to go hand in hand. All creativity is touched with madness, without a doubt. I mean, I view the whole creative process as being almost a dissatisfaction with reality. I've never really felt as though anybody sees the world the way I do. But I didn't actually believe myself capable of happiness as a kid. I thought success was the best way. I thought, making your mark, at least mattering. And the only thing that mattered to me was becoming an author. And you make that decision at 7, and you come one at 34. There's a lot of years in between where you're not what you're meant to be. And yeah, your demons, they feast on your brain like a leech. And when I finally got a book deal, I genuinely thought that the clouds would part, the sun would shine, and I'd be a different person. And it didn't. All it meant was that I'd achieved something, and that's great. So nobody can take that away from me. I've done the thing I set out to do. But when you've got children, you realize that you can't view yourself as some sort of tragic Dylan Thomas figure, and that being remembered after you've gone will be worth it. You have to go and play Sylvanian Families with your toddler, and you have to live, and you've got to pay the bills, and you've got to go and deal with the bailiff from Empower without punching him in the jaw, and those things drag me down. And depression does just hit you like a tsunami. It's a wave. And sometimes, you come through it and you bob around and you think, I'm all right. I can swim back to the shore. And other times, whether it comes from within or without, you really genuinely feel yourself being pulled deeper. And writing allows me to distract myself from that. It's not exactly a happiness, but it's a different world I can step into. And the idea that doing that with such authenticity almost led to me not being able to provide for the children just because of the whims of publishers. You've got to start, if you're a writer, you start thinking immediately, well, what does that mean? What does that mean on the grand scheme of things? When you start having these existential, metaphysical angst, and the next minute, you think yourself, my God, I need a drink, or I need something. And yeah, it's hard. It's absolutely, it's really, really hard.
I think we are all overthinkers, aren't we? As writers,
well,
I mean,
of course
we have to be to do what we do, and I think that possibly is what leads into it. Perhaps that brain is moving a little bit too quickly and is overthinking things. Is going through different scenarios, which you do as a writer. You don't kind of follow one thing. You can't. You're at a point you think, what if this happened? What if that happened? And you follow the one which seems most dramatic, and your brain does that in real life as well, and that can cause real problems, I think.
Yeah, without doubt. And also, if you know that as a writer, you were usually the clever kid in class, which doesn't always make you entirely popular with your classmates. And there's that irritation of people not keeping up. And I say this aware that we're surrounded by writers, so I hope that strikes a chord. But there's that irritation that people don't see things the way you do, and given that the world is in the state that it's in, and it's split down the middle, it's very difficult to keep the empathy and the compassion. Even if you're somebody who's good at writing character, reality can seem full of unbelievable people. I mean, I love writing new characters, especially the baddies, but they tend to be clever baddies. It's quite difficult to understand what people are thinking, because within the confines of a book, there has to be some degree of character development and things that have to be. There has to be an arc. Whereas human beings themselves, and I say that as if I'm a Martian sometimes, but human beings are so unwieldy and inexplicable, and they keep getting things wrong, and it's unforgivable. So retreat into fiction is my advice to anybody who finds the world terrifying and difficult.
So I guess what are your tips then for people who are struggling? And I know that a lot of writers are worrying about productivity. They're struggling to get the work done. Perhaps depression, mental health can hit anyway at any time, and in a time where you're. I mean, as we record this, I mean, I've not left my house in 34 days as we record this. I've not even for my hour's exercise. I've been doing that at home. So little things like that can start to build up. I mean, for me, the isolation thing is fine because I don't leave my house anyway. Like I sometimes go to the pub, but instead I just get drunk at home in the evening, so I'm happy. They don't have Netflix in the pub, do they? But I know a lot of people are struggling and are having real issues, and perhaps the situation we're in is compounding things, and even just when things are going generally well, mental health doesn't discriminate. It doesn't go, well, your life's going really well. I know myself, when I've had wobbles, it's actually been when things have been at their best. And
that's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, the imposter syndrome comes in and says you don't deserve this. Someone's going to find out. I mean, what tips would you have? I know it's such a broad church talking about mental health, and even depression itself is a massive broad church. But from somebody who's been there through it a lot, if there's anybody listening to this who's in a place like that at the moment, what could you say to them from someone who's been there?
Well, for a creative person, there is comfort in creativity. To bring your soaring mind back down to what it was that you first loved, which for me was the act of describing what I saw. For me, just sitting and writing about something that has no shelf life, that isn't for anything, that's going to have a marketing budget, that is literally just about. It's almost like keeping a diary, but also letting out what you feel. That's quite healing in a way, for me, and also it's the small things in life, really. I mean, I've got 5 kids, and with the best will in the world, they love me, but none of them really care if I'm having a bad day. They won't give me a hug, or they'll make some biscuits, and that's fabulous. But they realise that I have my ups and I have my downs, and as does my partner. She has her own struggles. So it is something for me, is something as simple as going and finding something that you like and spending time with it or them. I'm lucky. I live in the countryside, so I go out every day, and there's a tree near the house, and the tree doesn't really care about my day, but sitting in the palm of it and having a bit of a think and watching the river, and generally just letting your mind focus on what's in front of you. That makes a difference to me. Anyway,
it's like mindfulness, isn't it? Be in the moment. And,
it is, yeah. I mean, we come up with new names for things every few years, but essentially, it's just connecting. I mean, I think 5 years from now, maybe 10 years, even secular people, atheists, will understand that most of prayer is about connecting with yourself. It's almost cosmic ordering. It's saying, I'd like these things to happen. And I'm willing to do what it takes to help to get there. But there is something, even if you're not religious, I've always somebody who's enjoyed the cool of the church, an empty church, to just sit and be. And if you just take a bit of time for yourself, and try not to be ratty with the people who are trying to help you. Is the best advice.
That's easier said than done, isn't it?
Yeah. I've just had a notification that my phone is going to turn itself off in 30 seconds, Adam.
Okay.
So I don't know why it's going to do that, but it is.
In that case, I was about to wrap up anyway, but I shall.
Well, that's fine.
I shall say my goodbyes to you, and thank you very much indeed, David. And I'll do my closing notes.
Telling me that I'm wittering on. So
I'll do my closing notes while your phone is shutting down. Then
all right, mate.
Skip the single camera. Thank you, David. If you might be able to watch that video, you might be watching if you are an Indie Author Mindset patron. If you're not, if you're just listening on the standard podcast and you want access to video episodes and to lots of other things, if you're not already an Indie Author Mindset patron, now is the time to join. If you join today, you'll get a personalized thank you on the next episode of the Indie Author Mindset. You'll get a free Indie Author Mindset book of your choice, access to exclusive Patreon-only hints, tips, and strategies, which I post in the group every few days, access to exclusive live monthly Q&A events, priority one-on-one help and coaching from me, loads of stuff, much more, as well as being able to see the video episodes, and that all costs just from $2, which is $2 that can revolutionize your author career and help keep this podcast going, help us to keep empowering indie authors, gather knowledge, and build a better future for you. If you do want to help support us and get access to all of those great benefits, then head over to patreon.com/indie author mindset, or check out the link in the show notes. And as always, if you want to get in touch, you can email podcast@indieauthormindset.com. I'm on Twitter @AdamCroft, Instagram @AdamCroftBooks, and on Facebook in the Indie Author Mindset Facebook group. I'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, stay safe and take care. This episode of the Indie Author Mindset podcast was presented by me, Adam Croft. The Indie Author Mindset podcast is sponsored by Ingram Spark, helping you get your book into over 40,000 bookstores and libraries worldwide. Get started today at ingramspark.com. The theme music for this podcast is by the Caesareans. Don't forget you can claim 50% off any Indie Author Mindset course by entering the promo code podcast at the checkout. Links are in the show notes. For more great tips and guidance, join the Indie Author Mindset group on Facebook.